This is really interesting, because today we're going over a guy that has such an intriguing body of work that you might recognize from a few places. You might recognize this guy as being the Martin Brodeur distraction guy. You might recognize him for being one of the more infamous, notorious agitators in the NHL from the mid to late 2000s. You might even recognize this guy in Oppenheimer. Yeah, that's right, he's an actor too. Last time we talked about this guy, we made a video going over how he had signed with the ECHL's Orlando Solar Bears and then subsequently got released. But today, we're going over Sean Avery once again because of a few comments he had made regarding Connor Bedard, the first overall pick in this year's NHL Draft. Now, yeah, before we get into it, this guy was indeed in Oppenheimer. He was one of the military guys in the tent during the Trinity test scene. In fact, he has been in a number of Christopher Nolan movies. He was in Tenet. He was another one of those army guys hanging out in the tent, saying a few lines before the big final mission of the guys going forward and the guys going backwards. Even in Amsterdam, it's not a Christopher Nolan movie, but that also has John David Washington starring, as did Tenet. Sean Avery is the army captain in that one. So, yeah, the guy's a hockey player. He's also an actor. He's been in some pretty interesting things. I was very happy to see him on my movie screen when watching Barbenheimer. Yeah, I watched Barbie and then Oppenheimer in the same day. If anybody else did, then hey, let me know your thoughts in the comments about that. But last time we had talked about Sean Avery, it was about his Orlando Solar Bears stint. This time we're talking about him because of an appearance he made on the Leafs Nation podcast. I'm going to leave a link in the description to the video because it's 19 minutes long. It's a nice interview done with Avery. Because it's a Leafs-centered podcast, they talk mostly about the Leafs. But the one section of comments that I wanted to focus on happens at around the 11-ish minute mark of the show. In fact, it's a small comment. It starts out at about 11:38 of the program, but Sean Avery goes out there and has a few things to say about Connor Bedard. And it's talked about in the comments section of this Reddit post posted by World Citizen 7. They posted the Avery interview on the Leaf sub, and this comment goes out there and talks about it. Andrea says this: honestly, Avery makes a couple of really interesting points, and the ones that stood out to me were this. Firstly, having a bottom six that truly grinds, dumps, and forechecks to wear down the other team to give the top six easier minutes is something a lot of teams have done away with. He's not wrong there, and the teams that succeed generally revisit that model to a point. But here is where I wanted to make this video, because Sean Avery had some comments about Connor Bedard's playstyle and how that may not translate to the NHL well. He admits that Bedard's shot deserves credit, the mechanics, just the above and beyond nature of that skill, but he says that Connor Bedard is just a weird guy and he doesn't know if it's going to translate. Add to this, you had one of the hosts of the podcast actually say too that the way that Bedard skates and plays a more passive game when he doesn't have the puck is very concerning. To which Sean Avery replies, he says in the interview that Bedard's a weird kid, and I don't really know if that's too fair to go out there and say, but this podcast's main critique about Connor Bedard is what happens when he doesn't have the puck. How when one of the hosts watched Bedard, he notices that he kind of floated around, to which Sean Avery replies and compares to Brayden Point. Point is a guy who has had tremendous success at the NHL level, 50-goal season this year, good on him, WHL product, just like Connor Bedard. But Avery goes out there and mentions specifically that for Brayden Point, the guy never stops moving his feet. He's always going, he's always buzzing, he's always getting in the opponent's face, and he's always getting successful results because of it. And so that's pretty much it. That's the short conversation that they have in the midst of this Toronto Maple Leafs thing going over Connor Bedard. But what I wanted to discuss was just that idea as a whole. Whether or not Connor Bedard is really going to quote-unquote translate, if his skills are going to allow him to manifest successful results. And I get it. You could go out there and say that for Connor McDavid, he was kind of the prototypical first overall center when he played. He skated like crazy. He skated with and without the puck. He's a regular-sized dude. Not really the biggest, not really the smallest, just regular-sized. Austin Matthews, a bit bigger, so he's a little bit more difficult to shove off the puck. But he's got a pretty strong stride that allows him to get going, and of course his shot is incredible. When it comes to some of these other guys, though, Jack Hughes was touted as a smaller player. Sure, he's doing very well right now, but he didn't do that immediately. It took him a while to really become Jack Hughes. His first season in the NHL was one of the worst first overall rookie years we had seen in the league in the past few decades. So for Connor Bedard, you could understand it for a guy who is pretty much 5'10", 5'9"-ish. There's going to be some concerns amongst those that really do feel that size is important. Although I will say that for Bedard and the way that he skates when he does get engaged, this is one of these players that it's so difficult to take the puck off of him because his deception and his puck skills are so above and beyond. Sure, the shot is Auston Matthews quality. You could say that there may not be many players on planet Earth today that can shoot a hockey puck with the precision, accuracy, and power that Connor Bedard has. It's Auston Matthews and who else? But if you add on the Patrick Kane-like skill set of mobility, how he's able to shift and maneuver his way and spin around guys, how he's able to dangle by guys like Patrick Kane can, you gotta recognize that Patrick Kane was also a first overall pick. He was also in that same size range. He's 5'10", and in his first season in the NHL, he had 72 points in 82 games. That was definitely not bad. Kane didn't even have this generational status label that Connor Bedard seems to have, and he didn't have the shot either. So when I think about the idea that these guys are talking about in the podcast, that there's reason to be concerned about Bedard, I don't know, I just don't really buy it. I mean, even for Patty Kane, the closest, dare I say, just stylistic and maybe physical type of comparable player you could get, he's not really known for his defensive prowess either, nor was he ever really labeled as somebody who is going to be a super strong two-way beast. And besides, if Connor Bedard goes out there and gets a goal every 2 games, or he gets a point every game, that's all he really needs to do, right? I mean, he's 18 years old. We're not going to get ticked off if he doesn't get 100 points. I know some NHL analysts, like the TSN guys, ended up saying that they think he could get 100 points, or at least O-Dog did, but this is a player who's going to be brought in because he's going to change the franchise. And especially for Chicago to have already experienced Patrick Kane and know what it's like to have a young superstar that's in this same size range, who has these skills, come in, I mean, all of a sudden you just got to think, okay, yeah, it's the same story all over again. Even for Bedard, you could say that it's concerning that when he doesn't have the puck, he's gliding around, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, like the guys on the podcast said. But when he does have the puck, I mean, he is so brilliant and so above and beyond exceptional that I feel like any sort of obstacle that he needs to overcome, he's got the skills to do that. And if it boils down to his coach going out there and saying, hey, Connor, you got to back check. Hey, Connor, you got to move around the offensive zone a little bit speedier. Oh, you've got to play with a bit more pace. I feel like Bedard is the type of player to be able to just say, okay, I'll do it. Let's get it, guys. And, like, he'll just do it. Like, I feel like this is sort of the benefit of having such an incredible skill set and body of work before stepping into the NHL, because the benefit of the doubt is so high. For guys like Jack Hughes, you could even say, hey, there was some sort of a doubt there because he didn't play in the NCAA. He got drafted straight out of the NTDP. And besides, he doesn't even play the same style of game that Connor Bedard plays. You could say similar things about the guys afterwards. Okay, Alexis Lafreniere playing in a season that was slowed down because of the virus. Owen Power didn't even make the NHL right after. He just stayed in the NCAA for a while. So this really should be, in the grand scheme of things, for first overall picks, a return to form. And whether or not it's Sean Avery going out there saying that he doesn't know if Bedard is going to translate because he thinks he's a weird kid, or the other guys on this Leafs podcast saying that they don't think Bedard is going to translate all too well because of his passiveness away from the puck, the guy has so much goodwill because of his body of work that I feel that we just gotta wait and see. Like, if there's anybody that's gonna go out there and do well in their first year after the draft, it's Connor Bedard. So I don't want to go out there and say that expectations are high, but I think at this point it's justifiably there. So either way, I'll leave a link in the description to the 2 things there, the Reddit post as well as the video interview with Sean Avery. Go out there and see Oppenheimer if you want to see more of Sean Avery. I was watching Tenet the other day. I actually watched a whole bunch of movies heading into the Barbenheimer release day, and I did so in a very particular order. I watched The Prestige, Lady Bird, Dunkirk, Little Woman, and then Tenet before watching Barbie and Oppenheimer. And I did all of this within the span of like a week. So I had a really great experience seeing each of these movies on the big screen. And of course, seeing Sean Avery in both Tenet and then Oppenheimer, it was kind of surreal, not gonna lie. But he's on a podcast too, talking about Connor Bedard. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about each of these conversations that we had? Do you think Connor Bedard, there's reason to worry for him heading into the NHL? Why or why not? Do you agree or disagree with the Leafs Nation podcast? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.